church people and the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body. If he woke you up this morning and started you on your way. But I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how it started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. And I hear Brother Martin King saying, God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. Let me tell you, God has smiled on me. It's been so good to me. Then I see as Dr. King went on, another man stepping to the forefront by the name of John F. Kennedy, who rose up and said, let's not stand back. Let's not wait for a handout. Let's wait for a way out. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He said, don't us gravel and don't us moan, because God done smile on us. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. One more time. I want to say it real slow. I'll say God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Pick it up. God has smiled on me. I feel it. Then I went on by backstage at the Apollo Theater and I saw a man come out. They call him the King of Soul, James Brown. And James Brown said, Reverend, don't you worry. I started out as a shoe shine boy. I started out as a convict. I started out uneducated. But I learned to sing my song. And I sung it all over the world. I told him it was a man's world. I told him about the big payback. I told him Papa got a brand new bag. And all over the world, they can hear my voice. But Reverend, don't you frown. Don't you bow your head. Tell him what you told me, Brother Brown. I said, now God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to scream, y'all. I want to scream, y'all. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. Let me tell you, God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. He's so good to me. Let me tell you, God has everybody, sometimes He has set me free. I feel so good. God has smiled on me. Oh yeah. He's been good to me. One more time. God has smiled on me. Every day of my life, I feel it. He gives me strength and energy. God helps me to sing. He's been good to me. Oh yeah. This is Reverend Al Sharpton of Brooklyn, New York. I've been traveling around the country talking to the radio announcers, the church people and the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body. If he woke you up this morning and started you on your way. But I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how it started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. And I the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body. If He woke you up this morning and started you on your way. And I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how it started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. And I hear Brother Martin King saying, God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. Let me tell you, God has smiled on me. He's been so good to me. Then I see as Dr. King went on, another man stepped into the forefront by the name of John F. Kennedy, who rose up and said, let's not stand back. Let's
there,
not
sir?
wait for a
I'm
handout.
here.
Let's wait for a way out.
All right, sir.
He said, ask not what your country can do.
It's Thursday, May the 8th. Do you know what time it is? It's Al Sharpton's time. And for the next 3 hours, it's time to put aside all pretenses, deception, denial, or fronting. The time has come to keep it real on Keeping It Real on with Reverend Al Sharpton. A very good afternoon to you all across the country. And good morning to our West Coast listeners. Welcome to those listening on Sirius XM, Channel 126, The Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. And, of course, to all of you that are watching and participating on our live stream at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. And some of you already signing in. Bruce Turner says, checking in from Ohio Rev. Happiness Donuts says, thank you, God, for today. Mo Better says, where you gonna fam? Where you going, fam? Okay. And more and more just checking in, and I appreciate that. Hundreds watch us every day on live stream, thousands, tens of thousands on radio. Because we want to hear from you about your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns, and a lot happening. I mean, every day there's something fresh to talk about, and the continuation of what we talked about on yesterday. Let me say that apparently the Cardinals have decided 133 Cardinals have voted for a new pope. They've not announced who it is. People are there by the hundreds of thousands, and we will give you who it is when we have it. Two things at the top of the news, both of which I was involved in. There was a mistrial in Grand Rapids against Officer Christopher Schur, who fatally shot and killed Patrick Lyoya, Lyoya, in Grand Rapids. Many of you remember this case. I did the eulogy at his funeral. National Action Network paid for it. The jury was out 4 days and declared a mistrial when they could not get a unanimous verdict. The attorneys for the policeman say he was acting in self-defense after Leola attempted to grab his taser during a physical struggle. Prosecutors have argued Sher used excessive force. I think it clearly was excessive force. It's going to be interesting to see if they try that case again. And then yesterday, as we were going off, we got the verdict that the 3 black policemen in Memphis that beat to death on tape Tyree Nichols, another funeral that I did, and another funeral we helped pay for. And I say that because people always talking about we do this opportunism. No, we help the families. Many of the families need the help. We help pay for the funerals or pay for them outright. And even if the families later sue and get a settlement, some millions of dollars, we never ask or get a repayment because that's what we do. Because that's why we are what we are, National Action Network. And Tyrese Nichols, beat to death on tape, convicted in federal court, these officers, of police misconduct, of the whole squad they had there in Memphis was on excessive force. Federal government convicts them, state government acquits them. Now, what needs to be clear is that the argument was that they could not get a fair trial in Memphis, which is a lot of blacks. So they brought in a jury from Chattanooga, all-white jury, who let these 3 black cops go on state charges. Now the question is going to be whether or not the federal prosecutor gets them time. Well, why would you say that, Reverend Al? Because the prosecutors that indicted them are no longer there. Now the prosecutors that Trump put in place is there. And we don't know if they're going to ask for a lot of time or probation or whatever. They're convicted. They're felony convictions. But does not mean that they get the time they would have gotten had you had a fair prosecutor. So my reaction to both cases, since I was personally and intimately involved, is that is why we need federal law, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, because federal law would not have given Tennessee the right to go around the local community. George Floyd Justice and Policing Act could have passed if we had a majority in the House and the Senate. When people talk about them to vote for, well, that's one example of not voting gave us, even with Biden and Harris in, there was not enough votes in the Senate to make it law. And Biden and Harris supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Trump did not. And I think we need to be transparent about that. So, in fact, Vice President Harris, then Vice President Harris, came to the funeral in Memphis for Tyrese Nichols. And I had her speak right before I did the eulogy. Many of you that are on live stream can see the picture of her sitting on the front row at the funeral with the mother and father of Tyrese Nichols. And I understand that she called the family yesterday, soon after I spoke with them. They're going to fight back, and they're going to keep going. And, you know, I was talking with a reporter, I guess an hour, 15 minutes ago, and they were saying 5 years anniversary shortly on the death of George Floyd, killing of George Floyd. And it seems like a lot of the people that were out there then have disappeared. Some of them got millions in contributions. and a lot of airtime on TV and radio. They're the new whatever. And we haven't heard from them, Reverend Al. It's a black reporter from Reuters. I said, well, I've seen that before. I've seen all my life. We had from Howard Beach, the first big case I handled in '86. That would be what, 30-something years ago, 39 years ago. There was a group, the New Guard, then, and we didn't hear from them by the time we got to Tawana Broad. There was a New Guard then, and then it's always, we the New Guard, we the new whatever. And I say, let's see if there's some of us are not new to this, we're true to this. So a lot of them that was whatever with Black Lives and all of that 5 years ago, we have not heard from them. I'm talking about the community. They've not been on TV. They've not been keeping the movement going. They've not been fighting DEI. Some have. Some of the traditional organizations still out here. Interesting. But if you know history, there's always one step forward and then one backwards. And clearly, that is the case in terms of 5 years of George Floyd. When George Floyd was killed, corporations came up with DEI. We didn't call it that, they did, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Put up millions of dollars. Reacting to the tragedy, the outright filmed videotape murder. Then things calm down, backlash. Trump gets elected again, and now he's with laws trying to wipe out DEI, voting rights and all. But if you know your history, 63, they had the March on Washington, 250,000 people. Martin Luther King talking about he had a dream. A couple months later, they bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, killed the 4 girls. This is after the march. That outrage got, from those girls getting killed, got us into the '64 Civil Rights Act. The march didn't get us the act alone. The march showed a lot of support. The killing of that girl said, wait a minute, this is too far. Same thing happened with '65 Voting Rights Act. 1965 Voting Rights Act came after John Lewis and Hosea Williams and others. Miss Boynton, Amelia Boynton, was beat on that Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. So yes, we going to have setbacks. That's why we got to dig in. That's why people ain't got to ask 5 years after Floyd, where am I? I'm on the air every day, on TV 3-4 times a week, at the rallies in Harlem every Saturday. You ain't got to look for me. I'm looking for you. Because we've not solved the case. We got some things done. We got those cops convicted for George Floyd. They in jail. We got some policing under Obama where you now have to wear a body camera. But we have a long way to go. All right, let's take a break. I'm coming back and open up the phones. They are getting ready to announce the new pope. I'll tell you about who it is right after the break.
So who is Al Sharpton anyway? Who is this 33-year-old preacher without a church?
A number of black New Yorkers as well. He is little more than a pudgy exhibitionist who can be counted on to show up, bullhorn in hand, at every racial incident.
I often quote Mark Twain saying, the 2 most important moments in life is the moment you are born and the moment you find out why you were born. I had a very troubling conversation the other day that prompted me to do this little video. Young man that I've known a while came to me and he was crushed. I mean, really crushed, because people were criticizing his work. He's in the ministry, but he's also an actor. And he said he couldn't understand why people were jumping all over, criticizing him, trying to find scandalous and derogatory things about him. And I told him, I said, you know, you're very young. You don't know the road I've traveled. They call me everything but a child of God.
A blabbermouth, a loudmouth, too flamboyant, an agitator, a racist,
and
a race baiter.
Yeah, right. I was not defined by how others saw me. I was defined by how I saw myself and whether I was being true to myself. Some of you watching this don't like me. And it doesn't matter as long as I know what I'm doing. And I like me for being real. So I'm doing this video to say to you, whoever you are, and whatever you do, you may not be in ministry or social justice, none of this stuff, but don't live your life worried about opposition or people that don't like you. You can turn that around. Use me as an example. The same people that call me a scam artist, a con artist, a sellout, or racial hustler and all, I kept going. And the people I respected started respecting and publicly embracing my work.
When Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had this to say about Al Sharpton.
A leader who has protested injustice with a passionate, unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. And I am talking about your leader, our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
The other thing that hasn't changed is the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America. And that's not only a testament to Reverend Sharpton, it's a testament to all of you who are here tonight.
First and foremost, to Reverend Sharpton. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect, and his devotion to our movement, and much he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, he didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton.
All you want in life is people that matter to you to say you did all right. And more important, that you can look in the mirror and say you did all right.
Thank you, Rev. Thanks for that introduction. Look, we've known each other for a long time. I'm grateful not only for your leadership and partnership, but quite frankly, more importantly, for your friendship. And thanks to all of you, members of our nation's most important civil rights organization.
You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship.
I remember that most of the youth around Al's age, he was about 12, wanted to be like Connie Hawkins, a great basketball player, legend, or Earl the Pearl, or Clyde Frazier. Al wanted to be like Adam Powell, a powerful preacher with a social justice gospel. He was very close to, at that time, to Reverend William Augustus Jones, powerful preacher and social justice advocate, and Reverend Gardner Taylor, who stayed right down the street, and Bishop Washington, whose church he came from, and Reverend Sandy Ray. He wanted to be like these giant preachers. He wanted them to have the edge, however, of the King's social justice dimension. He wanted to be like them, now he's one of them. Perhaps taller than most of them because of the risks he has taken and reward God has given him with his gift. I remember so well that I first escorted him to jail. He was around 13 years old with the jail fighting the ANP. He was in the lineage of our struggle. He grew up in it. We didn't just see him on TV one night. He didn't happen. He came bottom up, not top down.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
This understanding of building upon the foundation left by previous generations. But I think you've mastered that, Rev. You've mastered building upon it, but also getting the current generation to understand the importance of when you accept a baton, to whom much is given, much is not only required, but much is expected.
And you do it yourself. That's why most of the people on our national staff here at National Action Network is under 40 years old. You just turned to 41. Most of them. Because I believe in trying to nurture and give young people a chance, because that's what you should do. And they're going to make mistakes. I make them. But then, at the same time, they got to respect those that went ahead to lay the path that they walking down. Otherwise, don't nobody, I said one Saturday morning at a rally, don't nobody urinate or piss on the tree roots but a stray dog. Because your roots is what is permanent. Your branches go with the seasons. Your leaves go with the season. The roots don't change. You judge the tree by the roots, not by the branches. We're all branches from trees that were grounded, planted, and rooted. And I'm a branch of the tree of the movement that I come out of. Somebody else, another movement. But how am I going to all them guys ahead of me to know what they was doing? Well, I'm a branch on their tree. My life comes from the root.
Yeah. That's good.
It's been a long time coming, but I know
1968, Dr. Martin King was killed in Memphis, Tennessee. And it has been the commitment of National Action Network to always, in the month he was killed, to let them know they killed the dreamer.
I have a dream today.
When they came to the dream. Your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. Well, in Rome, just moments ago, they announced the new Pope, the first American cardinal to be chosen. Born in America, raised and educated in Chicago, but spent most of his adult life and ministry in South America. He comes out of a religious order as Pope Francis did. Pope Francis was a Jesuit. He is Augustine, and he's just been announced, and he is taking the name Pope Leo the 14th. Pope Leo the 14th. And let us remember Pope Leo the 13th, who is his predecessor in name, was considered the father of social justice in the Catholic denomination. So it's a shocking to many. He was not considered a top runner or a front runner. He was not in the top list, But they chose him in 2 days, so there must have been consensus for this first-time American to be selected or elected by the 133 cardinals to be the new pope. Pope Leo the 14th is how he'll be known. Born Robert Prevost, educated in Chicago. And that's all we can say at this point. They say he was toward the more progressive side like Pope Francis, but not as far. So we will see what he will do, 69 years old. And that's who the Pope is. He's greeting the crowds now in Rome. I'm sure we'll get more data and analysis as the day goes on. Let me say by way of announcements, and I know many of you want to call in and respond to what happened in the Tyrese Nichols trial and the Leola trial in Michigan, police brutality, and then President Trump announced a tariff deal with England, and not a lot of specifics, not a lot of teeth in it, but he announced the deal, and then we have the Secretary of Treasury and others meeting with China this weekend on tariffs. So we have a lot to go through, and I want to go to the phones and stay on the phones a lot. We have several callers already on at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. And we already have several callers on, some of which want to continue the conversation they didn't get through on yesterday, and that's fine. I call it keeping it real. If you couldn't get through yesterday or Tuesday and still have an idea or a opinion, I want to hear it. Let me say to get the announcements going, don't forget to watch Politics Nation with Al Sharpton live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, both Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday on MSNBC. Among my guests this weekend will be former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, first black to be Attorney General. I want to talk to him about how he sees the Justice Department now, how they've taken out the Civil Rights Division for all purposes, and how he views some of the rebelling openly of the laws and misuse of the laws by President Trump. And so Eric Holder will be one of my guests. Keith Ellison, Attorney General from Minnesota, who did the George Floyd trial and won, will be among my guests, as well as they're talking about as we move toward the 5th anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. There is a lot of chatter that Trump may pardon the police officer that had his knee on his neck. So it's going to be hot this weekend on Politics Nation with Al Sharpton. Don't miss it. It's going to be hot both nights, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC. And then you that are in the New York and vicinity area, meet me or beat me to the Saturday Action Rally. We'll be dealing with all of these issues. What we going to do about Chauvin if he's pardoned by Trump, and pardon of killing George Floyd. What we going to do now, they've acquitted on state charges these police in Memphis on Tyree Nichols. Be at the rally Saturday as we also continue to fight against DEI. That's Saturday morning if you're in the New York area at the House of Justice in Harlem, 145th Street and Lenox Avenue, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the House of Justice. And we're gearing up, people signing up every day to become their own reference point toward mobilizing toward the big march on Wall Street on August 28th, it is absolutely necessary that we stand up by the thousands and say to corporate America, we are not going back. 5 years after George Floyd, where they promised all these things that they did not do, now they're going to come and take back DEI, which they started. We're going to write to the belly of American capitalism, Wall Street, where the stock exchange is. We're going to march from the African burial ground to Wall Street and show our strength. Now, you don't believe in marching, fine, but I've never seen march do anything but put on the front burner our concerns. No violence, no cutting up, no wolf tickets, just people standing up. That's how we changed laws and change our environment. If you want to know what to say to get people in your house, neighborhood, next door neighbor, bridge fund, bridge card friend, sorority member, just go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, and you can sign up, and I'll send you every Friday a new paragraph on what you could say to people on why we must march August 28th. All right, I hear the music. I'm going to take a break and come right back and go to the phones. Keeping it real. Sharpton. You got to be the new thing. This is not about likes on Facebook. This is about changes in our society. We got a hostile bigot in the White House, and we don't need a popularity contest. We need people that are grounded and rooted in this and gonna fight with all they got. Jesus went up on the mountain and told his disciples, I had a thought this morning that I want to share with you about mentorship. I am able to do a lot of what I do because I had great mentors. But there are correct ways and incorrect ways to mentor people, in my opinion. I was mentored as a boy preacher by Bishop F.D. Washington, one of the great Pentecostal preachers of his time. Then Reverend William Jones, who became my pastor after Bishop Washington died, who was unquestionably in the top 5 black church ministers, theologians. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who I started my activism under his leadership, he and Reverend Jones. And I learned politics directly as a youth director from Shirley Chisholm. So even though I didn't finish college, I had the most unique education in the world from being exposed to giants. But the one thing I learned is as I grew older and people started coming younger than me and wanted me to teach and mentor them, the magic of the mentors I had is they did not want me to be their clone. They wanted me to learn things from them and use my own gifts and talents in my own unique way and let me do things on my own, because they knew that if I flopped in some things, it would teach me for the other things. They'll come and help me once I was down, but they were not going to have me avoid being down. And they were not going to impose themselves on me. Why am I saying that? Because too many mentors want clones, and too many mentees want their mentors to put them on a pedestal. Oh, so-and-so didn't do this for me. Oh, so-and-so didn't open doors for me. If they got to open doors for you, it may mean that they knew you weren't ready to go through those doors. Their job is to prepare you. Your job is to develop your own skills, your own unique ways. And I don't care if it's my daughters, who both have come into their own, or anyone else. I'm not a talent agent. I did not form National Action Network to give people their step up. I formed it to fight for justice for everybody. If talented people get in, it's my job to invest and give them a platform. It's their job to get on the platform and perform and show their ability. Sitting with me today in the office as I talk about is one of my mentees, Reverend Stephen Marshall. Now, Now, Stephen, you just came around us when you were how old?
11 years old.
11 years old. You just turned 40, and now you're called to the ministry?
Yes, sir.
And what do you do in National Action Network?
I formulate policies, lead in various regions, but most importantly, I senior advisor to you on all things from social justice strategies, politics, intergovernmental affairs, you name it, community organizing, all of that stuff.
And I could go through scores of others. My daughter started Huddle. They got Huddles now, which is for young people to meet once a week all over the country. I just saw the video from the Las Vegas National Action Network chapter. Now, when you decided to preach, did I ever tell you to become a preacher?
Not one time.
Who called you to preach?
The Lord.
All right. And did I say go to this school or that school?
No, sir.
Did I open this door, that door? Did I tell you be ready when the door's open?
Always be ready and prepared.
And that's what I'm saying. Get you some young people than you that you can help along the way. But don't be their talent agent. Their talent must speak for themselves. And anybody that grumbles with you about so-and-so didn't do something for them, maybe it's because they didn't feel you were ready, or that they felt if they did it, you wouldn't do it on your own. But we all don't live forever. I want the next generation to speak of me, of National Action Network, and others, the way I speak of Reverend Jones and Bishop Washington and Shirley Chisholm and Reverend Jackson. But I just don't want young people to feel that somebody ought to give them the reins of leadership or give them the reins of business or whatever it is you're in. You need to learn from their journey, get the pearls of wisdom from them, but don't have them do for you, because then it means you can't do it for yourself.
This understanding of building upon the foundation left by previous generations. But I think you've mastered that, Rev. You've mastered building upon it, but also getting the current generation to understand the importance of when you accept a baton, to whom much is given, much is not only required, but much is expected.
And you do it yourself. That's why most of the people on our national staff here at National Action Network is under 40 years old. You just turned to 41. Most of them. Because I believe in trying to nurture and give young people a chance, because that's what you should do. And they're going to make mistakes. I make them. But then, at the same time, they got to respect those that went ahead to lay the path that they walking down. Otherwise, don't nobody, I said one Saturday morning at Raleigh, don't nobody urinate or piss on the tree roots but a stray dog. Because your roots is what is permanent. Your branches go with the seasons. Your leaves go with the season. The roots don't change. You judge the tree by the roots, not by the branches. We're all branches from trees that were grounded, planted, and rooted. And I'm a branch of the tree of the movement that I come out of. Somebody else, another movement. But how am I going to do all them guys ahead of me to know what they was doing?
Keeping it real, keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton, and we're back. 1-877-532-5797. 1-877-532-5797. And as I said, we
see now that a new pope has been announced. He will be Pope Leo the 14th. Pope Leo the 13th was an early 20th century pope that stood for social justice. This pope was educated in Chicago, first American pope in the history of Catholicism. We also see two verdicts coming in two cases of police brutality that we all know about. I, in fact, preached both of the funerals. The case of Tyree Nichols in Memphis that was beaten by these black cops to death on tape. They were convicted of federal crimes, was acquitted yesterday in state court, all-white jury out of Chattanooga. They would not have the trial with Memphis citizens. And then in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the trial of the police officer that killed an African brother, Leola. I preached that funeral and helped, along with Reverend Charles Williams and others. And they found a hung jury, a mistrial. We do not know yet whether they will try the case again. All right, let's start going to the phones. A lot of people want to talk. I'm getting a lot of people on our message page. I want to read a lot of them as well. Let's start in Wisconsin with Donald. Donald, you're keeping it real with Al Sharpton.
Refresh your screen, sir.
I'm sorry, I was on the wrong screen. Let me go to Patrick in California. Patrick.
Hi, Reverend Sharpton. Thank you so much for taking my call and speaking with you. One of the best gifts of my life. Thank you, and for your consistency. There's very rare people in the world that have done what you've done. And really quickly, the old saying, a comment and a question for you. That we saw the video of what happened on January 6th, the assault of the Capitol Police. That's the first thing he did, was release them. It's not a surprise. It's not even shocking anymore. These people have made their choice. They want to stand behind this person. I believe that love is stronger. My question for you, Reverend Sharpton, is do you think that it's possible that Supreme Court Justice Thomas can wake up and stand up? Because I believe he's the one person that can make a change if he would stand up. I don't know about Alito or Mike Johnson, kind of a joke, but I really believe that even with the history, with Anita Hill, etc., that Clarence Thomas could make a difference.
Well, I think, let me say this, and thank you for your call, and thank you for your words. I think that your conclusion is right, that Clarence Thomas could make a difference. Whether I think or have faith that he will ever change, I'll put it to you this way. My hope for him changing is slim to none, and slim is out of town, we used to say in Brooklyn. He has shown a absolute commitment to right-wing reactionary judicial decisions. And in all my life, I've never been as depressed as I was when a man that I know in media came to me and asked me would I meet Clarence Thomas. I said, I met with the guy that tried to kill me. I guess I could meet Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas was coming out with a book. This must have been 12, 13 years ago, maybe longer. And anyway, he brought me to Clarence Thomas's chambers, and I sat and argued with him for 2 hours. And I was hoping he would say in private that, well, I don't really believe all that, but I got to do this for politics or something. He argued and was firm in private, just me and him and the person that brought me there. And I just couldn't believe it. I had never in my life seen someone as adamant in the right-wing regressive movement, particularly a black man, than I did with Clarence Thomas. I walked out of his office that day convinced that's just who he really is. And I doubt if Thomas, to answer your question, will change. I doubt it. Let's go to Bay in New York. Bay, you're keeping it real with Al Sharpton. By the way, the person that brought me to Clarence Thomas was Armstrong Williams. Many of you heard of him. He's conservative, but Armstrong tries to relate from, and he convinced me to go and hear Clarence Thomas out. I wish I hadn't. All right, go ahead, Bay.
Greetings. Many blessings to you, Dr. Al. I gotta. This is really unacceptable, and it's at the point where the case in Memphis. I mean, this was actually filmed, real time filming.
Right.
You see, beating this man as if he's an animal when they're the animals, and I don't know. I don't care what the jury. Of course, that was a fixed issue. It was. It's at the point where I said this 30 years ago because I worked in the system. That's why I don't work in the system anymore. When I went to Pace University, we have to put a private seat in every neighborhood. We have to build private jails so we can have our own private system. So when the system fails, if we could have, by the World Court statement, and arrest these people on the spot and put their behind bars where they belong. Because this is ridiculous.
No,
to do something like that.
It is ridiculous. It was on tape, on record. I mean, this was absolutely set up by them switching juries. And I think we got to stand with this family and demand the federal courts give them sentence. I don't care the fact that Trump is now in charge. They were convicted. They can't return that conviction. But I'm with you on that, babe. Thank you for your call. And let me go to one of the activists extraordinaire. Maybe she can make me feel better with her energy. She always does. Pam, Sister Pam in Chicago. You're keeping it real with Al Sharpton.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. I so appreciate that, particularly all that we're going through. And I'm just going to say, Armstrong Williams, he took you into the belly of the beast.
He sure did.
He
sure did.
I can only imagine what that meeting must have been like and how disappointed you were. To understand Clarence Thomas, you do have to understand his book and his upbringing with his mom and with his, I believe, grandfather.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of self-hatred.
No, I tell you this, and real quickly, and I'll let you finish, even if we have to go over the break, is that Clarence Thomas, what got me more than anything in that meeting is that he said, you know, Reverend, he said, I went back to my hometown in Georgia. He comes out of a little town in Georgia. He said, and I brought a reporter who was doing a profile of me for some paper in Kentucky. I can't remember the name of the paper. He said, and I was showing him I grew up in this little segregated town. He said, and there was the library. He said, I couldn't go to that library. He said, it was a black lady worked there. And he said, we walked up the steps, got inside. He said, and there was this old lady behind the desk with very thick eyeglasses. And it was a lady that was a young lady that was there when I was a kid going to the library, and we'd have to go around the back to get the books because of the blacks. And I said, Miss Williams, and this is him telling me the story, is that you, Miss Williams? And she said, yes. He said, is that you? She says, that you, Clarence? He said, yeah, it's me. She said, come closer. And he came closer, and he said he leaned. He's telling me this. He said, I leaned down in her face, and she patted my cheeks and said, I just want you to lean closer so I could see what an Uncle Tom looks like. And he bust out laughing. He thought it was funny. That's when I was finished. I said, ain't no hope for this guy. He told me the story of the librarian he grew up under, called him an Uncle Tom, and he thought it was funny. Hold on a minute. Wow. I'll let that sink into everybody. We'll be right back after the break. Keeping it real. Sharpton.
Yeah, I'm here. Mr. Wells.
Yeah, he told me that.
How you doing, Al?
I was all right till I heard this verdict. This is crazy. I just wanted to call you and your wife and let you know whatever we need to do it, even if I had to come down there. But I'm glad that we got some of the federal charges convicted. But how do they find these guys not guilty? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to us, man. Not guilty on all charges. You could have found them guilty on something.
Right. That's
but
right.
To find them not guilty on every charge, I don't understand that, man. And the prosecution put on a hell of a prosecution.
Yeah, well,
so
I think
they get their things.
Well, I think we got to stand up. I'm gonna put out a statement and condemn it and say that I'm on call and that I talked to you and your wife and that I'm on call to do what we got to do. And I'm gonna commend the prosecutor for fighting. But the feds got to get him real time now.
Yes.
All right, I'm on it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sharpton.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
If you understand what faith is, you know, I'm a minister. Faith in the Bible is faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. If you could figure it out, if you have a guaranteed result, if you have a planned strategic course that won't fail, that's not faith. Faith is when you can't figure it out, but you know it's right, and you're going to do it anyhow. Even if you risk losing, even if you risk ridicule, that's faith. And that is what has been the basis of my activism, is faith. That I believe if you do what's right, it will end up right. So, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My mother was from Dothan, Alabama. Father was from somewhere near Daytona Beach, Florida. Wabasset, I think was the name of the town. They grew up in rigid segregation. They couldn't vote, had to sit in the back of the bus. They came north as part of the migration, thinking they'd find a better way up north. They didn't know each other, of course, met in New York, got married, had 2 kids. I was the youngest kid. Their youngest son lived to be one that sat on the stage when the first black president was elected. To go in one generation, from them not being able to vote, till 2 generations later, their son is working with President Obama, gives me faith. Because they could have said in Alabama, this will never change. It did. It did because people didn't accept it. And just as if I had told my mother, if I was an angel and had flown down to Dothan, Alabama in 1950 or whatever year she moved north, and told her there's going to be a black president one day, she would say I was crazy. You got to be able to see what's not apparently there and make it happen.
I'm Connor Webb. I'm the Speakers Director of the Yale College Democrats. We were so fortunate to have Reverend Sharpton here to join us this evening in New Haven to talk about the cruelty and the iniquity that we have seen celebrated under the second Trump administration, what we're meant to do about it as journalists and as press affiliate professionals and as citizens. So we were just so grateful to have him this evening.
Look at the story. We celebrated Good Friday and Easter just a couple of weeks ago. Well, there's a message in that. I heard a preacher talk about this the other week. The thing that people forget, I want you to keep this in mind, is they crucified Jesus. Those of us that are Christian believe they hung him on a cross, maligned him, mocked him. Wasn't enough to nail him. They mocked him, saying if you be the king of the Jews, step down and deliver yourself. Mocked him. Ridiculed him. He wanted water, they gave him vinegar. Crowned him with a crown of thorns. When they should be giving you your celebratory, they're going to give you some attacks. But the end of the story was they went and laid him in Joseph's tomb. Didn't even have a family tomb. Didn't have insurance like some of us. Laid him in a borrowed tomb. But the third morning, this is the story they tell it. The third morning, when they came to where they laid him, he wasn't there. My message is to you today that don't let them catch you
where they laid you. They may kill your name. They may crucify your character. They may tell you you are nothing from nowhere. But when they come to where they laid you, let you be gone on to somewhere else. I've been called everything but a child of God. They said I'd be nothing going nowhere. They castigated us. They called us troublemakers. They called us loudmouth. And when they came to see me go to jail, I wasn't there. They can catch me on MSNBC now. They can catch me leading marches now. I serve a God that not only will go through the crucifixion, but will bring you through the resurrection. We're going to resurrect in the city. Stand up, black man. Stand up, black woman. This is our time.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
And I want to be clear, loving your country doesn't mean lying about its history. You want to have a conversation about what makes America great. What makes America great is the uniqueness that this has been a country that is actually, despite a very uneven past, still can have an opportunity for each and every one of you to be here. Still can have an opportunity for the blessing of a Reverend Sharpton. Still can have an opportunity that you can have a person who was raised by an immigrant single mother, a person who joined the Army when he was 17 years old and went to a 2-year college, who can now sit here as the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland. We want to have a conversation about what makes this country great. And so this idea that this is being done because we don't want people to feel bad is a farce. The reason this is being done is because they do not want people to understand their power. Because when you understand your history, you understand that nothing is impossible. And you cannot minimize me because I know where I've come from. And I know who I've come from. You cannot tell me to sit in my place when I know my place is on a higher hill. And so this assault has nothing to do with making people feel comfortable. It's about making them feel uncomfortable, because understanding the true history, it matters.
That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came to me, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here now, at Ethiopian Coptic Cross. That was my first year on Civil Rights and Politics.
As I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work, but you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them.
need your help on this legal fight. You know, they shorted the historically black colleges and universities to the tune of about $13 billion, and Tennessee State was the one they shorted the most.
Absolutely. Well, let me know. I'm on the next plane as soon as you holler. You know, when Ben Crump called, I don't even question it. I just head to the airport and get the details on the way.
Live from the National Action Network corporate headquarters in New York. Keeping it real. And now, America's #1 civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
You're live, sir.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. And we're back, 1-877-532-5797. Let's go back to Pam in Chicago. Pam.
I'm here, Reverend Sharpton. I'm here. Thank you for sharing that story, and bless that sweet lady's heart. She probably meant, knowing what we know now, he is probably more like a Sambo Thomas. Not a full understanding of those characters, but bless her heart. Reverend Sharpton, I wanted to say quickly, Alcatraz, the first occupant, if they decide to do that, should be, guess who? The adjudicated sexual abuser who's in the White House in the convicted felon. He should be the first occupant if they reopen Alcatraz. I just thought that was so weird. Getting serious, my condolences to the Nichols family. And, you know, Reverend Sharpton, thank God for you and the other civil rights leaders and the churches and the people who are really standing up for truth. Because we know this is my opinion. This is never going to stop. Never. And I'm only saying that because this is what they like to do. And it's basically just terrorizing black people. And I only say never, not because we won't push back, but because for some of them it's in their nature. And I'm well aware that these black men, I won't call them brothers, that these black men, because some of us, right, assimilate into the culture of the hate, assimilate into the culture and the violence that comes from that blue wall. And that was a depiction of what I saw, to beat another black man, to not see the humanity in that person. I don't know why they would celebrate, and someone should get their families on the phone and make them explain, what kind of animal did you raise? My words, Reverend Sharpton, not yours, but somebody should be contacting their family and saying, what is wrong with you? Now, moving forward, I know you'll have some instructions for us. I vividly remember in Chicago, I met Amadou Diallo's mother.
Yep.
Because you brought her here.
Yep.
Never forgetting the pain that was in her face. But yet having to still fight and stand up. So, you know, I'm disgusted and always ready to push back and fight back. But we now know that the leader of the hate, of these hate groups, is now occupying the White House. And there are those who look like you and me who helped put him there. Shame on them. We must recognize them, and we must act accordingly, because we've just been betrayed by them. The next piece, Reverend Sharpton, I had an opportunity to see Biden's interview on The View. And as they asked him about the election, you know, he talked about, you know, addressed some of the questions they, you know, presented. My only concern is, Reverend Sharpton, we cannot neglect talking about voter suppression when we talk about this election. And I just wish the Democratic leadership, as well as our elected officials, talk about this in real time, in a real sense, because it is continuing to show itself in election, and they are trying to perfect the system. That is crucial if voting is supposed to be the mainstay to our political system.
That's right.
And I want the Democratic Party to speak out about that. Lastly, Is Attorney Jones Austin coming on today?
Yeah, she'll be on in a few minutes.
Okay, I know I can't talk with her, but leave her after this question. Reverend Sharpton, if this goes to federal with the Tyree Nichols murderers and they're convicted, will they be up for pardon if Trump decides to give them a pardon, the adjudicated sexual abuser? And if the attorney could talk about the total gutting of the Department of Justice. Because what I heard...
I think that's appropriate questions. Yeah, I like that.
So I will listen, and we need to support NAN, Rainbow Push, NAACP, Attorney Crump, all of the people and organizations who are doing the work. That is important for us to put our money where our mouths are. We talk a good game, but are we going to finance the game? I mean, do you hear me, Reverend Sharp?
Yep.
We talk a good game. Are we going to finance the game? So I'm saying we have to. We must. And thank God for our civil rights organizations because you're doing the work.
Well, thank you. And as always, it's good to hear your voice. You do give me energy. I know somebody out there really means supporting those that are out there. And Sister Pam exemplifies and personifies that. Let's go to Alan in Baltimore, Maryland, WOLB. Alan.
How you doing, Reverend Al? Yeah, commend you. Check this out, Reverend Al. You know the white jury was from Chattanooga.
Right.
And they sending a message. They didn't care nothing about Tyree Nichols, a black man, or the mother.
Right.
And I believe they were thinking about states' rights. But two out of the five gonna do state time because they made a plea like I testify or snitch on the other officers so you can have a case. The other three gonna do federal time, and the snitches, they're gonna have hell in the state prison because most people don't like snitches. That's why we got a lot of crime in the black community because people scared to snitch.
Right.
I think it's a win-win, but I think that jury will send states' rights because the education department down there want to take over Shelby County schools. They want to take over, just like they not there because they said they was incompetent. They had problem with the superintendent down there. Her name, what's that lady's name? Marie Fagan. But the state down there doesn't like black folks, or they don't like Democrats. And for them to do that to Tyree's mother, what kind of message? They don't care about a black man or his mother, and saying thank to Jesus for the officer to get off. And Sunday's Mother's Day. You follow what I'm going with that?
I'm definitely following you.
Mother's Day. Yeah. So I just said that black men, black women, that I'm saying we know the history of white folks, not all of them. Man, on Mother's Day they can be that brutal.
Yeah, it's
God help America.
Yeah, God
help America.
God help America is right. Thank you for your call. 1-877-532-5797. 1-877-532-5797. Let me go to the message page, and let me start with Darlene Anderson. She's got several messages up there. Try to go to the first one and give them to me in sequential orders. You see, problem here is here in America, the services were always for the youngest and the neediest. And all of the resources are based off the youngest in the need of children. And here we are giving Alma peanut butter sandwiches to people who already have resources in the money. And failure is an option. And so we're living on the back of people who are not making it in America. Okay. And we just need to understand who we are in America, and then we pay taxes, but for the dollars to come into our community, we need to have a conversation in regard to public policies. Yeah, I agree. We need to have the conversation, Darlene. You are right. And some of us have been trying to force that conversation for years. And I think we're going to keep having to do it. Let me go to Tanya Stovall. Tanya Stovall says, these tactics are used to get police officers off and white people from being convicted of the crimes they commit. And in this case, Tanya, and thank you for your call, these were black cops they acquitted. White jury out of Chattanooga let the black cops go. Now, as Alan said incorrectly, two other cops, there was 5 police involved, 2 turned state's evidence, they're going to jail, even though they cooperated. And the other 3 are convicted federal, and they ought to do time. But the whole precedent can happen again without law. And that's what we must do, is change the federal laws. That's why everybody talking about I ain't got nothing to vote for. Well, look at the Tyrese Nichols case. Let's go to Ray in Cincinnati, Ohio. The Buzz. Ray?
Yes, sir, Rev. Thanks for taking my call. Actually, what you just mentioned, I wanted to bring up because let me ask you this. I thought the state charges are go before the federal charges.
It's according to when they're going to have the trial. I think they did the federal trial first.
Okay, and then when you mentioned about voting, I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be a lot of black Republicans that's like, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is what you voted for.
Yeah.
Let's call before a break.
That don't vote are the ones that don't get on juries.
Right.
Now, even if they did vote it in Tennessee, maybe maybe they just put 12 jurors on there anyway. But
no, well, they said they were not going to use jurors from Memphis because they said it was too much publicity. They got them from Chattanooga, and it was an all-white jury. This was not a jury of their peers.
Right. Okay. And so people, this is why, a lot of black folks don't vote and they don't get on juries to actually make a change.
Right.
And so at least these 5 officers are going to jail, and I don't know what happens next, but, I might just say condolences to their family. And, it's a shame. And so, and this is why it all comes back to voting, Rev. This is you guys, the black Republicans, the blacks that didn't vote, and I'm not excusing the white folks too. They didn't vote. This is what you get when you get a Trump administration, and the same ones that got these cops off in Tennessee are probably the same ones that said it's okay for the January 6th rioters to beat those Capitol Police. Probably the same exact ones. And then those are the ones I call hypocrites. All right, Rev, thanks.
Thank you for your call. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. 1-877-532-5797. Sharpton, keeping it real. Be right back.
You ready? Okay. I understand. Let me get you some
and she's here, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
We are here on behalf of the people of our country and our President, Joe Biden. And we are here to celebrate the life of Tyree Nichols. Mrs. Wells, Mr. Wells, you have been extraordinary in terms of your strength, your courage, and your grace.
In the city that they slayed the dreamer, what has happened to the dream? In the city where the dreamer laid down and shed his blood, you have the unmitigated gall to beat your brother, chase him down and beat him some more, call for backup, and they take 20 minutes. And you watch him, and you are too busy talking among each other. No empathy, no concern. If you read the story of Joseph, when his brothers threw him in the pit, nobody came to help him, like nobody came to help Tyree. Waiting on ambulance service that didn't show up until it's too late. What will happen to his dream? Well, we'll just tell them something else happened, but we are going to throw them in a pit. But I come to Memphis today to tell you the same mistake Joseph's brothers made is a mistake you made. You thought you threw Joseph in a pit. You thought you threw Dr. King's dream in a pit. But every time you throw something in a pit, God takes the pit and raises it up and changes the whole world. Yeah, I'm here. Mr. Wells.
How you doing, Al?
I was all right till I heard this verdict. This is crazy. I just wanted to call you and your wife and let you know whatever we need to do it, even if I had to come down there. But I'm glad that we got some of the federal charges convicted. But how do they find these guys not guilty? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to us, man. Not guilty on all charges. You could have found them guilty on something.
Right. That's
but
right.
To find them not guilty on every charge, I don't understand that, man. And, the prosecution put on a hell of a prosecution.
Yeah, well,
so
I think...
They get their bench.
Well, I think we got to stand up. I'm going to put out a statement and condemn it and say that I'm on call and that I talked to you and your wife and that I'm on call to do what we got to do. And I'm going to commend the prosecutor for fighting. But the feds got to get him real time now.
Yes.
All right, I'm on it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sharpton.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
This understanding of building upon the foundation left by previous generations. But I think you've mastered that, Rev. You've mastered building upon it, but also getting the current generation to understand the importance of when you accept a baton, to whom much is given, much is not only required, but much is expected.
And you do it yourself. That's why most of the people on our national staff here at National Action Network is under 40 years old. You just turned 41. Most of them. Because I believe in trying to nurture and give young people a chance, because that's what you should do. And they're going to make mistakes. I make them. But then, at the same time, they got to respect those that went ahead to lay the path that they walking down. Otherwise, don't nobody, I said one Saturday morning at the rally, don't nobody urinate or piss on the tree roots but a stray dog. Because your roots is what is permanent. Your branches go with the seasons. Your leaves go with the season. The roots don't change. You judge the tree by the roots, not by the branches. We're all branches from trees that were grounded, planted, and rooted. And I'm a branch of the tree of the movement that I come out of. Somebody else, another movement. But how am I going to, all them guys ahead of me to know what they was doing? When I'm a branch on their tree. My life comes from the root.
Yeah. That's good.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
You're live.
Keeping it real, keeping it real. I'm your host. Keeping it real. Reverend Al Sharpton. There's so much to cover. And that's why I'm glad that we are on Policy Day, where our policy wonk, resident, extraordinary attorney and activist and policy leader, co-host the last, I guess, almost 2 hours of the show every Thursday. She is the CEO of the Protestant Welfare Agencies of New York, and she is the vice chairman of the National Board of the National Action Network, Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin. How you doing, Jenny?
I'm doing all right, doing okay. Lots going on in the world, but I'm holding it together like everybody else, trying to do my part.
Yep.
Good to be with you.
It's a lot going on. I announced live that the Robert Prevost has now been announced the first American to become Pope. He'll be called Pope Leo XIV. He's an Augustinian out of a religious order, as Pope Francis was a Jesuit. And he's supposed to be similar to Francis on some humanitarian issues. And he, having, been educated in Chicago, be interesting to see what positions he took. They say he's very much against what's going on to migrants. And I think it's an interesting choice, and we'll see. One thing for sure is that Donald Trump, who mocked the selection process by having an AI photo put on White House social media. It just shows his disregard and disrespect for anybody's beliefs.
You know, I got a text from my brother shortly after Robert Prevost was announced as the new pope, and they say the first American pope in history, which I think is fascinating, just given, you know, what is happening in this nation and all of the hate and divisiveness that the first American pope ever in the history of the Catholic Church, first American pope comes during this time with all of the ugliness that attends America. Just, you know, how God sometimes works things. But Billy sent me a note saying that this new pope was said to have said that his allegiance is only to Christ. So that is interesting, right? You know, Daddy used to say, and you may have heard him say, my father would say, that the freest person on earth should be the preacher, because that person's allegiance should be to the cross and not to the flag. And so if this pope says his allegiance is to Christ, then it'd be interesting to see, you know, how he plays the politics. But they say that he's a big defender of migrants and of the poor, and that his views have leaned more, you know, has centrist, sometimes leaning more progressive. So it will be interesting to see what he says in this moment about America and how America has been conducting itself over the last few months.
Absolutely. Talking about what's going on in America, and I have a lot of calls, but give me your analysis of the verdict in Tennessee. They acquitted 3 of the black officers that had been convicted in federal court, but they freed them of all state charges. It was an all-white jury out of Chattanooga. They did not use people from Memphis. And I talked to the family immediately after it happened, and obviously, in fact, they were here at the convention, National Action Network convention with you and I 2.5, 3 weeks ago. The legal fallout from this, I suppose, is that we've got to hope that the federal case, they get some time, because there were 5 of them involved, 2 turned state's evidence. They're going to jail because they turned state's evidence and pled guilty. It would be even worse if these 3 that were acquitted by this all-white jury got no time at all.
Yeah, you know, so like many people, this is just very, very disturbing. I mean, anybody who saw the tapes, you know, had to be just, you know, shocked beyond belief. And what we have here is what we often see, that it is so difficult. I guess even when the officers are black, it is so difficult to get a conviction against police officers. Now, it's important to note that the charges that they were that were brought against them at the state level related to second-degree murder and violence, you know, those types of charges resulting in his death. At the federal level, what they got them on was witness tampering, but they did not get them on the more serious charge of violating Mr. Nichols' civil rights. So the federal charges could still carry up to 20 years, but not at the federal level or at the state level do we have death charges that have held up. The other thing to note here is that based on the evidence that was presented, supposedly, you know, I didn't see it, but Mills was the officer Mills was the one who inflicted the greatest bodily harm, and he took a plea deal. And so essentially what was able to happen in this case was the defense was able to essentially argue that these 3 officers who've now been acquitted didn't really do the most serious harm. You know, that's sometimes what plays out. They play off of those who took a plea, or even when people are in separate trials, they play off of each other. So we've got, you know, the kind of the, you know, good defense attorneys, if you will, doing what they do and playing the system. And in this case, these 3 brothers who inflicted bodily harm along with Mills and Martin that resulted in Tyree Nichols' death, they get to walk on these more severe, serious charges. And we can only hope and pray that there's a maximum of 20 years on the federal charges, that they do some time.
Yeah.
But it's part of the system. It's the system that the juries will always try to find some doubt. So, and the defense will sow reasonable doubt when we're talking about officers, and because they will paint the plaintiffs the deceased, the victims, as they often do, as the bad persons. Then it's like poor cops. The cops are put in these unfortunate situations.
The tariffs. President Trump announced a tariff deal with England today, short on the specifics. They're supposed to be meeting with China and Treasury Secretary over the weekend. Trump saying that the United States will not come down off its 145 tariff on all incoming Russian goods. And we hear a lot of talk about the tariffs, how it affects the stock market, how it affects import and exports. But I don't think a lot of us know how it impacts us on the ground. I want to talk to you about that and take calls, because I think a lot of us see this as some economic mumbo-jumbo and don't understand that this is going to affect the price of milk, the price of bread, all the way to automobiles. So let's take our break, come back, take some calls, and then I want to get into tariffs. Keeping it real. Sharpton, Jones Austin. Be right back.
So who is Al Sharpton anyway? Who is this 33-year-old preacher without a church?
A number of black New Yorkers as well. He is little more than a pudgy exhibitionist who can be counted on to show up, bullhorn in hand, at every racial incident.
I often quote Mark Twain saying, the two most important moments in life is the moment you are born and the moment you find out why you were born. I had a very troubling conversation the other day that prompted me to do this little video. Young man that I've known a while came to me, and he was crushed. I mean, really crushed, because people were criticizing his work. He's in the ministry, but he's also an actor. And he said he couldn't understand why people were jumping all over, criticizing him, trying to find scandalous and derogatory things about him. And I told him, I said, you're very young. You don't know the road I've traveled. They call me everything but a child of God.
Racial discord, a blabbermouth, a loudmouth, too flamboyant, an agitator, a racist,
I had to learn.
Yeah, right.
I was not defined by how others saw me. I was defined by how I saw myself and whether I was being true to myself. Some of you watching this don't like me. And it doesn't matter as long as I know what I'm doing. And I like me for being real. So I'm doing this video to say to you, whoever you are, and whatever you do, you may not be in ministry or social justice, none of this stuff, but don't live your life worried about opposition or people that don't like you. You can turn that around. Use me as an example. The same people that call me a scam artist, a con artist, a sellout, or racial hustler and all, I kept going. And the people I respected started respecting and publicly embracing my work.
When Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had this to say about Al Sharpton.
A leader who has protested injustice with a passionate, unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. And I am talking about your leader, our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
The other thing that hasn't changed is the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America. And that's not only a testament to Reverend Sharpton, it's a testament to all of you who are here tonight.
First and foremost, to Reverend Sharpton. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect, and his devotion to our movement, and much he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, he didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton.
All you want in life is people that matter to you to say you did all right. And more important, that you can look in the mirror and say you did all right.
Thank you, Rev. Thanks for that introduction. Look, we've known each other for a long time. I'm grateful not only for your leadership and partnership, but quite frankly, more importantly, for your friendship. And thanks to all of you, members of our nation's most important civil rights organization.
You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship.
I remember that most of the youth around Al's age, he was about 12, wanted to be like Connie Hawkins, a great basketball player, legend, or Earl the Pearl, or Clyde Frazier. Al wanted to be like Adam Powell, a powerful preacher with a social justice gospel. He was very close to, at that time, to Reverend William Augustus Jones, powerful preacher and social justice advocate, and Reverend Gardner Taylor State right down the street, and Bishop Washington, whose church he came from, and Reverend Sandy Ray. He wanted to be like these giant preachers. He wanted them to have the edge, however, of the King's social justice dimension. He wanted to be like them, now he's one of them. Perhaps taller than most of them because of the risks he has taken and the reward God has given him with his gift. I remember so well that I first escorted him to jail. He was around 13 years old. With the jail fighting the ANP. He was in the lineage of our struggle. He grew up in it. We didn't just see him on TV one night. He didn't happen. He came bottom up, not top down.
You got to be the new thing. This is not about likes on Facebook. This is about changes in our society. We got a hostile bigot in the White House, and we don't need a popularity contest. We need people that are grounded and rooted in this and gonna fight with all they got. Jesus went up on the mountain and told his disciples. Reverend Toon said, y'all pray with me. They went to sleep. And when they looked up, they say that he had gone up on the mountain. They termed transfiguration. Is that in the book? And he was talking to Moses and Elijah. If Jesus had to talk to those that preceded him, then how you so brilliant you ain't got to talk to nobody? So as we embark on dealing with this DEI fight, I wanted to read, I studied all week. What would Dr. King be saying? What would Reverend Jackson be saying? That's what we do. This ain't a Sharpton thing or whoever thing. This is a thing in continuity. If Dr. King can shut down the Montgomery bus boycott when we couldn't even ride the front of the bus, if Jesse Jackson could take on major corporations before we had cell phones, then we in our day can take these companies that want to say no DEI and shut them down because we come out of a tradition and a lineage that can do that.
You're live, sir.
Keeping it real, keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton, and we're back. Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin is our co-host. And let us remember to watch Politics Nation with Al Sharpton. live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, every Saturday and Sunday. You're not going to want to miss this weekend. This weekend, among my guests will be former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, first black to be the Attorney General. And I wanted to really get into with him about all of the legal challenges that we're seeing that is being raised by the Trump administration, the whole disbanding of the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department, and other moves that he helped to institute as Attorney General. I want to talk to him about that, voting rights. And Trump defying the courts. This is going to be an important interview and conversation. Also, we'll have on the Attorney General from Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who was the lead attorney in prosecuting the police that killed George Floyd, that resulted in their being convicted in state court and in jail right now, all three of them. And there's talk, Keith Ellison is his name, there's talk that Trump is talking about pardoning them on the federal cases. They had federal convictions and state convictions, and I'm told even if Trump pardoned them of the federal, the state's convictions stand, they'll stay in jail. So I'm going to have the Attorney General, the attorney on that case, on this weekend. So watch Politics Nation with Al Sharpton both nights, Saturday and Sunday. I'm live both nights, MSNBC. Then you that are in the New York vicinity, be at the Saturday Action Rally Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the House of Justice, 145th Street and Lenox Avenue in the village of Harlem. We're certainly going to be dealing with what we're going to do to support Tyrese Nichols' family. We're going to be dealing with some of the follow-up to what we're doing around DEI. They are marching right now on the 71st week. They're marching right now on Bill Ackman's office, who started this whole fight against DEI. National Action Network, our local chapter leader, Reverend Ron McHenry, is leading that every Thursday. Be at the rally Saturday morning, 9 to 11 at the House of Justice, 145th Street, Lenox Avenue in the village of Harlem. And, of course, you that are not in the New York area, you can watch it live on Impact Television, the only black-owned national gospel cable network. Or you can watch it on live stream at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. And last Saturday we had a few thousand more than usual tuning in and watching and participating in the rally. And, of course, we're all gearing up toward the march in August, the August 28th march. Not going to be in Washington this year, though it's the anniversary of the March on Washington. We're going to Wall Street, and we're going to march from the African Burial Ground right to Wall Street, right to that square where the stock exchange and other iconic buildings that house the captains of finance, to put them on notice that we won't go back and that you cannot in any way, shape, or form try and roll back the commitments made and the laws, because many of them are Trumpsters. We need to be right where the rubber meets the road on that day, and thousands of us must go. Now, if you go to our website, and many of you say, I'd like that, Rev. Mal, but I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to organize people. And don't go out trying to be Bod Rustin. Talk to people right in your house, right in your church, right in your sorority, your fraternity, your bingo partner. And I, every Friday, give you that sign up, send you a paragraph on this is what you could say, this is what you can understand, why the march is necessary. So go and sign up at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Jenny, let me go back to you. Give me a briefing, and then I'm going to the phones for our audience on what does these tariffs negotiations. He announced he being Trump announced a tariff deal with England today, though the specifics are vague. And they're meeting with China over the weekend, though they're arguing about who asked for the meeting. What does it mean to me on the ground in Atlanta, in Nevada, in Chicago, people listening to us all over the country? It sounds like a lot of economic policy wonk stuff, but it really affects my pocketbook. How?
Well, what you always say, let's just begin here. What you always say is that there's a lot that happens in D.C., in the state's capital, in the municipal city halls that affects us on a daily basis, but we often think that we're so removed from it, but that's not the case. Every decision they make affects our lives. And when Donald Trump waged a tariff war against many countries, it was sure to hit our bottom line in our pockets. And this is how it hits us. The higher a tariff against a country, it's like a tax on that country and the goods that they send over to the United States. And so if you think that they're just going to eat that increased cost, that tax, they're not. They're going to pass it on to the consumer. So if we're talking about fruits and vegetables that come in from places, let's say like Mexico, what that looks like is when the cost of those fruits and vegetables grows for them to send them over here to the United States to do business with the United States, then what's going to happen is that cost is going to get passed on to the consumer. So if a grocery store is buying goods from a dealer and they import them from another country, fruits and vegetables, well, that grocer is now going to pass those increased costs on to the individual buying the mangoes, buying the strawberries that may come from some other place, buying the vegetables, the spinach, the broccoli, if it's not made here in the United States. Another way that it affects us is that, if we're talking about the deal that's just been struck with Britain, we get a lot of metals. Metals are used in everything from electronics building to cars and the like, but we don't get metals just from Britain. We get metal products from China, as an example, which right now has more than 150% tariff on it. When those metal costs go up, then what happens is the goods that are produced with the metals go up. So if you're trying to buy something as basic as a microwave and it's made in China, that price of that microwave is going to go up, and that price is going to get passed on to you. If you are buying a car and auto parts with metals and electronics were made in other countries, then when those things are imported, now here's the deal. It may not be that the car or the other product was actually made in another country. It can just mean that the parts to create that product were made in another country, might be made here in the United States. But whatever the case is, the cost of that material goes up, then what happens is it gets passed on to the consumer. Ultimately, it gets passed on to the person who's buying that product, that microwave, that TV, that phone, that car. The other thing that people don't think about is that when costs go up and prices go up, that leads to inflation, right? When costs go up and you don't have more money in your pocket to pay for it, now more money is coming out of your pocket, things that you need to do with that money. Otherwise, you're going to have less of that money. What also happens when prices go up sometimes and when tariffs go up is that the supply chain goes down. So you might see that, people start importing less materials, less goods from other countries. So now if the supply coming in from other countries goes down and America is not going to be able to make those products overnight, now the cost of those goods alone is going to go up because there are less of them, less supply, more demand because there's less of it. That raises prices. The other thing to keep in mind is that we may begin to see loss of jobs because what happens is when you've got industries, companies and the like that rely heavily on imported goods. If they can't afford to bring those goods in because of the increased costs, now they may not be making the products here at home, or they may not be selling them. They're going to start laying off people. So you have potential job loss. And then the last thing I'll just point out is small businesses are often directly impacted because small businesses don't have the cash. They don't have the money often to float increased costs. So now if they're reliant upon imported materials, they're going to have real hard times picking up those increased costs on the tariffs. So they may actually go out of business because they don't have the cash to float the increased costs.
There you got it. It's going to hit us. They're not talking about somebody somewhere else. They're talking about you and me. Pay attention. Let's take a break. Be right back. Keeping it real. Sharpton. Jones Austin. Be right back.
This understanding of building upon the foundation left by previous generations. But I think you've mastered that, Rev. You've mastered building upon it, but also getting the current generation to understand the importance of when you accept a baton, to whom much is given, much is not only required, but much is expected.
And you do it yourself. That's why most of the people on our national staff here at National Action Network is under 40 years old. You just turned to 41. Most of them. Because I believe in trying to nurture and give young people a chance, because that's what you should do. And they're going to make mistakes. I make them. But then, at the same time, they got to respect those that went ahead to lay the path that they walking down. Otherwise, don't nobody, I said one Saturday morning at a rally, don't nobody urinate or piss on the tree roots but a stray dog. Because your roots is what is permanent. Your branches go with the seasons. Your leaves go with the season. The roots don't change. You judge the tree by the roots, not by the branches. We're all branches from trees that were grounded, planted, and rooted. And I'm a branch of the tree of the movement that I come out of. Somebody else, another movement. But how am I going to all them guys ahead of me to know what they was doing? Well, I'm a branch on their tree. My life comes from the root.
Yeah. That's good.
One year ago and change, 67 weeks ago, we started marching every Thursday, am I right, on the offices of Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman was the architect of ending DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. He started it. I want to give a little history because a lot of people get Negroitis and get confusion. I don't even mind your ego. Everybody need one, but you don't have to become contrary and duplicitous. We got to have integrity even among those with ego. So we started when they first came out against DEI. Now Ackman and them started it going at Harvard University, forcing out the first black woman and first black president of Harvard. We went to his office and been going 67 weeks. I went first 10, 12 weeks. And this brother, stand up, Reverend Ron McHenry, coordinator House of Justice. This brother has been there every week. Many of you here in the audience have marched every week. So we didn't just get in this. We were in it the day they came at Claudine Guy. Last year's convention, we dealt with DEI. This year we said that we're going at these corporations that had come out against DEI. Many of you, most of y'all I'm looking at was at the convention. And we hit Pepsi. Pepsi called and said, all right, we 8-9 days in, we agree to meet. And we went, purchased New York, chairman of our board, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, and Carol Wallace, who's a special advisor to us on finance, and laid out to them that one, we don't care what you call it, DEI, IED. Y'all are gonna keep your commitments in terms of the black community.
And that means we don't want special privilege, but we do not want to be specially excluded. This is not about we don't want merit. We feel if our people are at the table, we can beat anybody on merit in many cases. So we want from employment to your board, to how you deal with marketing, to who does your financial investment. We want to go across the board with that. Otherwise, if you don't want to deal with the question of diversity in how you do your business, then don't deal with diversity in your consumer base, because you don't believe in diversity. So we just will try to remove all the dollars we can from buying your stuff. In fact, I told the chairman, maybe the chairman of the board, maybe the CEO, I said, in fact, I learned that not from growing up civil rights, I learned that from Donald Trump. I said, what do you mean? I said, Donald Trump said he's going to redo tariffs, that if he doesn't get what he wants for the country, they were going to raise the tariffs. I'm doing the black tariff reverse. If we don't get what we want, I mean, y'all can't be for Trump and tariff and not be for us in the African American community with a tariff. Yeah, I'm here. Mr. Wells.
How you doing, Al?
I was all right till I heard this verdict. This is crazy. I just wanted to call you and your wife and let you know whatever we need to do it, even if I had to come down there. But I'm glad that we got some of the federal charges convicted. But how do they find these guys not guilty? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to us, man. Not guilty on all charges. You could have found them guilty on something.
Right. That's
but
right.
To find them not guilty on every charge, I don't understand that, man. And the prosecution put on a hell of a prosecution.
Yeah, well,
so
I think
they get their bench.
Well, I think we got to stand up. I'm gonna put out a statement and condemn it and say that I'm on call and that I talked to you and your wife and that I'm on call to do what we got to do. And I'm going to commend the prosecutor for fighting, but the feds got to get him real time now.
Yes.
All right, I'm on it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sharpton.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came to meet Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here now. That Ethiopian Coptic cross. That was my first hero in civil rights and politics.
As I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement. Stop telling yourself you're not confident of what you could do.
When people with half your skills and a quarter of your talent have gone on to create big waves in life, if you look at them and you know you're more gifted than them, then what is your problem? You are looking for someone to come and drag you into success. You've got to use what you have, which is, in my judgment, more skillful than others I've known in your area. Use that and believe in that, and your confidence will build up as you get going and start doing. And don't chase the spotlight. Sharpen your skills. Live in your purpose. And you'll get so good the spotlight will be chasing you. Be so good they can't help but talk about you and put the spotlight on you. You don't get your energy from chasing the spotlight. You get your energy by chasing your purpose. The spotlight and other adulation will come with it. Have a great day.
You're live.
Keeping it real, keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin is our co-host. Let's take some calls, Jenny. Let's start in Savannah, Georgia with Rufus. Rufus, you're keeping it real with Sharpton and Jones Austin. Hello.
Good afternoon, y'all.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, it was amazing, fascinating listening to you talk about that meeting that you had with Judge Thomas. I knew the family pretty well. And because he grew up around here. He grew up in Pinpoint. The
Right.
Pinpoint is a little area around around the coast. Savannah's on the coast.
Right.
And he grew up around the coast, little coastal little area. You do a lot of shrimping and fishing around that area. But in any event, I got in a little trouble about 25 years ago, or a little more, and I got a little trouble with some guys at the Harlem, and I ended up in the joint. I'm gonna just lay it down on the line. But I was a bunkmate to his nephew.
Really?
Yeah. I was a bunkmate to his nephew. I know him very well. The boy that they raised, or that him and Jenny had raised, was my bunkmate Mark's son.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and it was just so fascinating to hear you talk about how when you met him, and he had a lot of he was real negative toward his sister, which was Mark's mama. You know what I'm saying? And his nephew did almost 22 years.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm telling you, me and his nephew was bunkmates. I used to wake up every morning. He was up over me because I'm a little older than the nephew, so I was the elder. I was in the bunk, the bottom bunk, and he was on the top bunk. We from the same hometown. And I knew his a lot of his cousins and stuff that was a little older than him, but he was married to a white girl, and he had like 4 mixed children. And Clarence, he always had an issue with that. A complex about being so black. You know what I'm saying? And so when I guess Clarence sort of had got the little mixed boy and said he told him that he was going to take the boy, and he took the boy up there to Washington D.C. and put him in and him and Jenny, the wife. Took the boy and they had him in the private schools up there. But let me say something like this about that. After all that, after they raised that boy, I'm sure what type. I don't know what that boy went through, but after they raised that boy and all that boy got 18. That boy got the hell away from them.
Yeah, I could imagine if I was growing up in Clarence Thomas' house, I'd have got away from there too. That's very interesting, Rufus. Well, thank you for your call. I got a lot of callers, but I was telling the story early, Jenny, about the one time Armstrong Williams got me to meet with Clarence Thomas. It was probably the most depressing meeting in my life. Let's go to Cliff in Connecticut. Cliff, you're keeping it real with Sharpton and Jones Austin.
Hey, Reverend Sharpton, thanks for taking my call. Listen, I'll try to get right to the point. I was trying to be hopeful in terms of the selection of the Pope. You know, so out of the history of the Catholic religion, there have been 266, so correct me if I'm wrong. And then out of that 266 popes, there only been 3 black. And that was in the beginning, like early part of the creation of the Catholic Pope, or the Catholicism. Now that falls under Christianity, correct? You have Catholicism and then it branches off, all under Christianity. So with that being said, you know, and Jennifer, you as well, you know, it just, to me, it clearly indicates the racism in that organization. And I'm just being honest.
Are you Catholic?
No, I'm a Christian. I'm not Catholic, but I'm Christian.
Well, Catholics are Christian. That's part. They're Christian.
Right.
Okay.
You know, absolutely. But I'm pointing out, and I'm seeing, though, Rev, you know, again, the racism in terms of the image of Jesus being white, the statues, the saints, everything's white. You know, and we know clearly from the Bible, particularly the Ethiopian Bible, that the saints, Jesus himself, Abraham, the Noah, the son of Noah, Ham, these are black people. So it's obvious in terms of the whitewashing that's been evident, you know, with this religion. And so I'm simply saying is that when it comes down to the black church, and I do believe that the black church, Reverend Sharpton, has been pretty much sanctioned under the Catholic Church.
How so?
In terms of, even let's take, for example, in the Bible, right, and see if this makes any sense, it speaks of 7 days in the book of Genesis that the world, everything was created in numbers. So day 1, day 2, day 3. The names of the days have came from the Catholic religion. Sunday, Monday, and they all exemplify, right, idolatry. So Sunday representing the sun, Monday representing the moon, and so forth. So the names of the days have come from the Catholic religion, even to the point where the birth of Christ.
Yeah, but you way off of what you made a point that I question you about. How does the black church sanctioned by the Catholic Church? Because the name of the days of the week didn't come from the black church. That came from American culture and Western culture. You made an indictment on the black church that I'm asking you to support it.
Saying that the black church and its politics have been pretty much dictated to from the Catholic Church.
How?
So, the image of Jesus.
They what?
I believe the majority of the black church embrace more so a white Jesus in comparison to a black.
And what data do you have to prove that?
Oh, I simply, even in our households, Rev.
That ain't the way. You all over the place. You make. Here's the problem I got. Here's the problem I got, Cliff. If you make a statement, that's why I call it keeping it real. You got to support it. You said the black church was sanctioned by the Catholic Church, and you went into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and idolatry, which all the Western worlds use that. That ain't the black church. Then you say you believe most of the black church look to a white Jesus. I said, what's the data? Well, in our homes. You can't make a blanket attack that you can't support. Not on this show. Thank you for your call. Let's go to Al in Rochester, New York. Al?
Having me, Rev. I'm still laughing about Clarence Thomas. But let me make 2 quick comments. One about the tariffs and Mr. Nichols. The tariffs, China has one of the biggest steel plants on the planet. Sophisticated, technologically brand new steel plant. You're not gonna hurt China. Trump runs his mouth constantly. But see, his bark is bigger than his bite. you're not going to do nothing to China, what China can do to us. And also, in terms of Nichols, all respect to his family, I'm trying to understand what I'm getting the minds of these police officers. What was the motivation behind their attack? I heard rumors there was jealousy, Mr. Nichols, towards Mr. Nichols some kind of way. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can. I heard when I went down to do the funeral and follow-up rallies that there was some allegation, never really proven, that there was something about a woman and one of the cops. And my position, yeah, but my position then and is now, one, nobody approved that, but second, that does not give you the right for you and your fellow officers to beat somebody to death. Let's say all the rumor was true, and I find no way, shape, or form that anyone established it to be true. So that means if a cop was going with a woman and she was going with somebody else, he got the right to beat him to death and not go to jail, or at least not on state charges. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't play into the rumor because the rumor had nothing to do with the brutality. They don't have the right to do. A civilian don't have the right to go beat somebody to death over a jealousy.
Well, my point exactly, and I hate because the defense, they're gonna feed off of things in the wrong kind of way.
Right. Well, that's what defense does. But Jenny, answer his point on the tariffs, because you had addressed the tariff thing, and I think that he made a point on the tariff situation. Al from Rochester.
Well, he's spot on. When China holds the upper hand, and it's not just on steel, it's on other metals, it's on other precious goods. They hold the upper hand, and that's why, frankly, over the course of the last several years, they have maintained that upper hand in terms of the tariff deals and the negotiations. We might find that America breaks before China breaks, if you will, or America bends before China bends, because if you have the public outcry, let's say the tariffs hold at 154%, you'll have a lot of Americans who will be, essentially very angry when their cell phones go up from $1,500, which is ridiculous to begin with, but that's a lot of money. When they go from $1,500 to $3,500 to get a new cell phone, who's going to be angry about that? And who are they going to take it out on? Americans. They're going to take it out on the electeds. So, you might see that Trump will bend before China bends.
All right. Thank you for your call, Al. Let's take our break. Be right back. Keeping it real. Sharpton, Jones Austin. Be right back.
Country, talking to the radio announcers, the church people and the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body. If He woke you up this morning and started you on your way. But I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how he started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. to the forefront by the name of John F. Kennedy, who rose up and said, let's not stand back. Let's not wait for a handout. Let's wait for a way out. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He said, don't us gravel and don't us moan, because God doesn't smile on us. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. One more time. I want to say real song. I say God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Get it up. God has smiled on me. Then I went on by backstage at the Apollo Theater and I saw a man come out. They call him the King of Soul, James Brown. And James Brown said, Reverend, don't you worry. I started out as a shoe shine boy. I started out as a convict. I started out uneducated. But I learned to sing my song. And I sung it all over the world. I told him it was a man's world. I told him about the big payback. I told him Papa got a brand new bag. And all over the world, they can hear my voice. But Reverend, don't you frown. Don't you bow your head. Tell them what you told me, Brother Brown. I said, now God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Yeah. He has set me free. God smiled on me. It's been so good to me. Then I went home and I told my mother what Brown told me. And she said, son, even though we don't have much, we don't need relief. All we need is belief. And she said, he didn't tell you no lie, because the Lord will take care of you. God sits high, but he looks down low. And every time you get discouraged, every time you're burning down, all you have to do is think of the things that God made a way for you and look toward the heavens. Lift your eyes to the hills and say, God, 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 don't smile on me. Now then, the God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. That has been so good to me. Yes, he has. I say, God smiled on me. He has set me free. And I know all over the country, smile on me. We need jobs. We need a way to make it. We need help. We need jobs. We need a way to make some money to feed our families and raise our bread. We need a way to survive, so we don't need crime as a survival kit. We just need a little bit. But don't give the hope up. Don't lose the faith, because God will smile on you. God will give you the strength. God will make a way for you. Adam Clay Powell said, keep the faith. Keep the faith, baby. I hear Robert Kennedy saying that it's not the dream of, but it's the dream that'll live on forever. Just know that God will smile on you. Dr. King had a dream. Dr. King said, I went to the mountaintop, but I didn't stop there. I looked over and saw the promised land. I hear Brother Malcolm saying, don't sit on the stoop. Stand up and be a man. Respect yourself. Be somebody. Then I hear the brothers in the Hispanic community say, I'm going to stand up and be a man. I'm going to do the best I can. I had a reaper say, I don't care what time you come home, but just give me some respect when you get there. Lord, now God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God smiled on me. It's been so good to me. Sit down. And as we move on in history, let us remember that if we look to God, God has the answer to all of our problems. God is still the same God he was years ago, and we can still make it. We can still hold on like Frederick Douglass did. We can still keep him on like Martin Luther King did. We can still ride on the way everyone that made it did. They didn't have much, but they had a whole lot of faith. They didn't have money, but they had a lot of determination. We know that God will look out that God will make a way out of no way if you just keep the faith and refuse to lose. And God will make a way because God's children don't have color. God's children just have will. And I can still hear somewhere in my mind James Brown say, God has smiled on me. He has let me free. Let me stay here. Yeah, Lord. Yeah, Lord. Yeah, Lord.
Keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin is our co-host. Let's go to Michael in Fairfield, Georgia. Michael, you're keeping it real with Sharpton and Jones Austin.
We lost him, sir.
Lost Michael?
Refresh.
Let's go to Raj in Cleveland, Ohio. Raj. Do we have Raj? I do not hear Raj. All right, let me go to Al-the-Knee in Atlanta. Athene. Okay, that's not how they wrote it. Okay.
Athene.
All right, how you doing, Athene?
I'm doing good, Reverend Al. How about you?
I'm doing well.
And thank you for all you do. We love you.
Thank you. Love you
But
back.
Reverend, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. But I just wanted to affirm and call in just to lift everyone's spirit. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, right? I live in actually Stone Mountain, Georgia. Decatur, Georgia, which is a suburb. I used to live in Decatur, Georgia. Have you heard of Decatur, Georgia?
I've been to Decatur.
Okay, good. Well, now I don't know if you've been keeping up with the news because this just happened on Tuesday. Fox News reported it, and it's all over the news right now. The city of Decatur, Georgia, Board of Commissioners just approved and apologized to all black people in America. They have approved reparation. They had this is national. See, things like that they don't want to put out there like that. But yeah, they have issued, and these are mostly Caucasians. They have issued an apology, and they're starting with the city of Decatur to all African Americans, people of African descent, that, through slavery and human trafficking and all the wrongs that were done to our people in that city. They have taken a stance now, and they're recognizing it, and they're acknowledging the history. And right now. Well, it ain't gonna happen probably for about 3 years, is what the report said. They're still doing their what do you call it, reporting and trying to figure out the best way to issue an apology and to make reparations. And so the city itself, they extended a full public apology to the black residents of Decatur, past and present, for their role in discrimination, oppression, resulting in harm to African Americans. They've acknowledged it, and they have publicly apologized. And so now the next step is their work that they formed a reparations task force, right?
Okay.
So what they're doing is trying to gather information. They said it may take up to 3 years, but they're on board. They have committed to acknowledging. They've already done that. That's been on Fox News, that they publicly apologize for the mistreatment of black people in their city and in the country, of course. But right now they're waiting. They said it's going to probably take about 3 years for finalization of everything. They got to figure out how to pay reparations, because you're going to get paid. They already said that. They're going to get paid. They're going to get compensated. And Reverend L, when I heard that on the news, I had to call your show, because you've been out there fighting for so long. And there is a God. There's a God that reigns sovereign and supreme over this whole creation. And he moves when it's time for things to happen. It happens. But we have to keep fighting. We can't give up. Those people in Decatur, Georgia, they formed, the brothers, African Americans, formed a reparations task force. So they've been asking for this for quite a while. They started back in 2013.
Oh, wow.
And now it's coming to fruition. Not only that, and I'm going to let you go, not only that, but Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, have now formed a reparations task force, but they did theirs too back a couple of years ago. So because of the city of Decatur, what they did, Fulton County is now on the carpet for doing the same thing. So this thing is going to blow up. We're going to get our reparations.
Oh, no, if we hang on in there, thank you for your call.
Yeah.
Jenny, that's why I love how she said, hang on in there. Because imagine our forefathers who kept saying, hang on in there, we're going to get out of slavery one day. And the people say, oh, no, it ain't never going to change. And we were enslaved, physical bondage, for 246 years. And yet we did get out of bondage. Now, we went in another form of racism and another form of segregation. But if you keep fighting, it's not when you win, it's that you must win. And that's why I challenged the caller on the black church. I was reading the black church by Bishop Washington and your father were William Jones. They ain't never preached about a white Jesus. So I'm not going to let people just make a blanket statement like that. That's not true.
That's right. That's right. And, there's that old line, nothing worth fighting for ever comes easy. And if this was easy, then, then there actually would be no fight. There are things that you've got to endure, because what happens in these instances, they want you to give up. They want you to say, this is too difficult, this is too hard. I'm just going to go home and I'm not going to fight for what is right and what is fair, what is equal, what is frankly honorable in this nation. That's what they're expecting you to do. And so, when she was speaking, I was reminded of Opal Lee, the black woman in Texas, who for decades, fought to see Juneteenth become a national holiday. It was in Texas, but she never gave up. She stayed the course. I was reminded of a friend of mine who, when I was struggling with cancer, who said to me, you've got to remember, the journey that you're on, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, but you got to stay in the race.
Wow, I like that. I like that. And I think that a lot of us don't understand that. And it goes from one step forward, they'll push back. It's always been a backlash. You had the Emancipation Proclamation, 12 years of Reconstruction, pushback, White Citizens Council, Ku Klux Klan. Then you had the Plessy versus Ferguson court decision that legalized segregation for the next 60, 70 years until Brown versus Board of Education. But the real news is, I think that a lot of us give them too much credit. The real news is we never stop fighting. No matter how many setbacks, we elect and re-elect a black president, Barack Obama, backlash. Donald Trump became the next president. We fought back and got Biden and a black woman vice president. Pushback, Trump comes president again. We never stop fighting. And the just like we get tired of fighting, they're tired of fighting and are betting on us throwing in the towel. We will not throw in the towel.
That's right. You know, there's that, you ever hear that line? I believe it was a Greek poet, but I can't remember the name. But it was a Greek poet who years ago said they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. I remember that poem. I love that. And let's take our break. We'll be right back. Keeping it real. Sharpton. Jones Austin. Be right back.
Get ready. Okay. I understand. Let me get you something on.
And she's here, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
We are here on behalf of the people of our country and our President, Joe Biden. And we are here to celebrate the life of Tyree Nichols. Mrs. Wells, Mr. Wells, you have been extraordinary in terms of your strength, your courage, and your grace.
In the city that they slayed the dreamer, what has happened to the dream? In the city where the dreamer laid down and shed his blood, you have the unmitigated gall to beat your brother, chase him down and beat him some more, call for backup, and they take 20 minutes. And you watch him, and you are too busy talking among each other. No empathy, no concern. If you read the story of Joseph, when his brothers threw him in the pit, nobody came to help him, like nobody came to help Tyree. Waiting on ambulance service that didn't show up until it's too late. What will happen to his dream? Well, we'll just tell them something else happened, but we are going to throw him in a pit. But I come to Memphis today to tell you the same mistake Joseph's brothers made is a mistake you made.
You thought you threw Joseph in a pit. You thought you threw Dr. King's dream in a pit. But every time you throw something in a pit, God takes the pit and raises it up and changes the whole world. Yeah, I'm here. Mr. Wells.
How you doing, Al?
I was all right till I heard this verdict. This is crazy. I just wanted to call you and your wife and let you know whatever we need to do it, even if I had to come down there. But I'm glad that we got some of the federal charges convicted. But how do they find these guys not guilty? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to us, man. Not guilty on all charges. You could have found them guilty on something.
Right. That's
But
right.
to find them not guilty on every charge, I don't understand that, man. And, the prosecution put on a hell of a prosecution.
Yeah, well,
So
I think...
They did their thing.
Well, I think we got to stand up. I'm going to put out a statement and condemn it and say that I'm on call and that I talked to you and your wife and that I'm on call to do what we got to do. And I'm going to commend the prosecutor for fighting. But the feds got to get him real time now.
Yes.
All right, I'm on it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sharpton.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
You're live, Rev.
Keeping it real, keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin is our co-host. Don't forget to watch Politics Nation this weekend. Among my guests this weekend, I'm on both Saturday and Sunday, 2 different live shows. One night I'm going to have on the former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, the first black to hold that position. And he's going to talk to me about the laws that are being dealt with and abused now in this country and how he feels about what Trump has done to the Justice Department he led. And I'm going to have on another night the Attorney General, State of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who was the lead attorney prosecutor that successfully put 3 police in jail on the killing of George Floyd 5 years ago this month, and the rumors that
Trump is talking about pardoning the police. Well, the in-state jail, he can't pardon them on the state case. But we're going to go through the whole thing with Keith Ellison and Eric Holder, among other guests, this weekend. Also, don't forget Saturday Action Rally. I'll be there Saturday in Harlem, 145th Street, Lenox Avenue, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you're in the New York area, come be with me. If you're not, watch it live on Impact Television, the only black-owned national gospel television station. And we're on 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Live. Or you can watch it on www.nationalactionnetwork.net. August 28th, all roads lead to Wall Street. We're not going down there to buy stock. We're going down there to take stock of what they're doing to make sure that all of the strives that we fought for equality as consumers are abided by, and they are underwriting Trump in breaking them down. So if you need to know the explanation, you need to know what to say to people on why they ought to march, I'm sending out a fresh paragraph every Friday. All you have to do is sign up at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, and you can get my message every Friday. Jenny, going to the message page, got a couple of messages that I want to read. One, Rufus, the seer, son of Yah, says a lot of younger black people today think that older black people used to worship a white Jesus, but they didn't realize that many older black people knew the truth before, but we're quiet about it. And that's my point. I remember, Jenny, in 1967, I was 12 years old. I went to Abyssinian Baptist Church. Adam Clayton Powell was the pastor. Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, he's congressman. And he said, get them white Jesuses out of the church. Jesus was a black man. It's over 50 years ago. Dr. James Cohen had the book out, Black Theology, 50 years ago. Your father used to preach that. That's why I take personal offense with somebody talking about somebody, the Catholic Church, somebody who's dictating to us. That's not true. In fact, the whole Protestant religion, even whites, Protestant meant they were protesting and breaking from Rome. So get your history right. Let's go to the phone. This policy day, we couldn't end without hearing Todd. Todd, you're keeping it real with Al Sharpton.
Hey, Reverend Al Sharpton, Jennifer Jones, Austin. So I have a question for you. Is the progress going along relatively well as could be expected on the murder case of your former National Action team member?
Yeah, she was the young man that shot the stray bullet has surrendered, and I think he will be prosecuted to the full degree of the law.
Do you know to what degree he is admitted to his crime?
I do not know. No.
Okay, there'll be more. I'm sure you'll have the updates in a time.
Absolutely.
There was something that you mentioned about one as you were talking about social justice and fighting until there's no fight left because they want you to quit. That's what I was talking about when I was referencing how to bring down gun violence in this country. You have to reduce apathy because once somebody can convince you not to fight anymore, whether you're wounded or not, just convince you not to fight, then apathy sets in.
Right.
And apathy is a major enemy to anybody that's working for any cause of any kind, whether it be good or evil. And we're talking about causes of good. If you could get the public to believe that you're only in a small group, even though your group is large, and nobody really cares but you guys, even though a lot of people care, and it's really not that important, even though it's very important, then apathy comes into play. And then they don't have to fight you anymore because you're not interested. You just don't think it's worth it anymore. And that is a horrible position to be in. Horrible position to be in because now you're very vulnerable to those that will run you into the ground and exploit all that you have to give for themselves. Bad move. Apathy is a bad thing. And we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Jennifer, yourself, and I, about how if you compare some of the major cities and how their gun violence is low, consequently their murder by gun violence is low. There's investments by the public at a reasonably high level, although it's not the majority of the public, in the public school system, the rec centers, the public libraries, the council ward meetings and projects, and the equivalent of citizens review boards. And I was telling Jennifer, as Jennifer was talking with me as well, that if you want to get this done, this is where the investments have to be, along with, and these are all connected to civic engagement. And I just don't believe that there's enough evidence to say that housing and employment rank higher or even equal to those 5 things that I mentioned. It just doesn't. It's the engagement, whether you're poor, rich, employed, or not. Jennifer?
I'm listening to you, and I appreciate the points that you're making. And the challenge you've got with me sometimes is that it's that it's the lawyer in me. There's opinion and there's fact, and then there's opinion informed by fact, and then there's opinion based on common sense and speculation. And so I'm hard pressed to say that that how do I say this, that housing and poverty are not, that you can say that those stressors don't play into how people feel and their disposition. And I'm not saying that just because you're poor you commit violence, not at all. But as you were saying when you first began, there are things that make people apathetic, and being worn down and beaten and feeling this sense of no future, no hope can cause that. And poverty has been shown to be a stressor of that type. So I hear what you're saying. I hear the point that you're making. I just can't definitively, the lawyer in me won't let me just simply say, the researcher, the policy person, won't let me just simply say, well, yeah, I hear you and I agree with you. I understand the point that you're making. It's a good point. I just don't know whether or not it bears out in terms of research.
It does. It absolutely does. And when I was
give me the example. Give me the facts. Give me
that's
the
what I was giving you when I compared Arlington.
But you don't actually know whether or not those are actually the key indicators that actually make that happen. There could be a bunch of other factors. We don't know, for example, when you look at these states now that we have, let me just finish. In some states now where we have measures of economic security and we look at the factors, housing, child care, food, transportation, and the like, there are a lot of different variables that fall into play. When you look at states and you look at what are the mental health supports that they provide, that's another key indicator. In places where you have states where there's low mental health services, that's a huge factor that contributes to violence and gun issues and the like. So again, it's not, for me, I can't just say definitively without looking at the data whether or not it is an absolute. I just don't know.
I'm not claiming an absolute at all. Mm-hmm. What I'm claiming is those 5 things that I mentioned
can contribute too. I agree with that.
Are much more important. What you mentioned is important as well, but in comparison, those 5 things that I've mentioned are much more important than high quality employment and good housing for people, whether they're able to pay rent or have rent paid for on their behalf through government services. It's a matter of civic engagement of the collective on those 5 things that brings down the gun violence. And Arlington, Texas stands as a good example of that, especially in comparison to a city such as Cleveland, which only has 36,000 less people than Arlington, but Arlington has a high murder rate of 17 people last year. And 17 is
Here's
high.
What I want you to do, because look, what I'd love for you to do is send me the reports you're looking at, so that I can look at them myself and understand what it is you're looking at and the assertions, the statements that you're making. Send me the reports. You can send them to me. I'll put it out there. Anybody else listen, you can send me information to jjaustin@spwa.org.
One more time.
J.J. Austin at spwa.org.
I will do that. I appreciate
it.
But here's the other thing I wanted to say about it, because I mentioned that when we talked the last time, but we were short on time, that 17 is actually a lot of people, even though that city has 390 something thousand people. 17 is a huge amount of people to have been murdered by gun violence in that city. But it's because you compare the violence to the resources available to the public to be nonviolent, to be healthy, productive citizens, privately and members of the government, in order to run the place. And then when you look at all those things that are of high quality in that city and compare it to those same things that are available in the city of Cleveland, which had 105 murders last year, you look at it and you think, okay, then it's not the population, it's the resources. Well, do they have equal resources? Cleveland has some resources that are much better than Arlington as far as those 5 things I've mentioned. But to what degree is the public invested in those resources so that there's less people interested in coming against the public that are invested in those resources?
Right.
And that's what makes the difference. That's
Okay,
why
I'm
Arlington
going to take
has
a look at it.
17.
And what I want us to be clear on is challenging whether or not these resources about which you speak are critical. They are very critical. I advocate for them on a daily, so I don't disagree with you. I'm just not yet. I need to understand a little bit more before I can say that housing and poverty alone are not like stressors, or that, just because you undo all of this other, that housing or your employment, your employability, your level of income is not a significant factor.
Oh no, they're significant. They just don't measure up to those 5 things if those 5 things are in place. No doubt, if you're unemployed for a long period of time and without money for a long period of time, you are vulnerable to becoming a criminal. Now, as to what type of criminal you become is different. And in addition to that, if you don't have housing, you may do something illegal in order to make sure you're warm in the winter and cool in the summer and covered from the rain and the snow. That all may happen. But as it applies to gun violence, which is primarily what I was talking about, the reduction of gun violence, and particularly murder, or wounding somebody for an extended period of time, it doesn't compare to those. If those other 5 things are in place and have strong public participation, gun violence is going to go down, way down.
Right, and the other thing that you'd have
about.
to bring, I appreciate the points you're making. The other thing you'd have to take a look at is access to guns. And what does the state of Virginia, what are their laws and restrictions on guns compared to other places, say like in Ohio? If we don't know that information, that's a huge variable that you have to factor in as well. If you've got more restrictive rules and greater penalties around guns, and you have a police system that does its best and its utmost to keep guns off the street, that's going to be another additional factor. I'm just saying there's so many elements that I need to understand better, but you're going to send me the report, and I'm going to read it.
Get her the report and let us talk about this next Thursday. I am out of time, but I think there is, what's the saying? 2 things could be right at the same time. Mm-hmm. Let's look at it. Let me thank you for your call, Todd. Let me thank Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin. Let me thank all of you that called in, listened in, you that called in and couldn't get through, but hung in there anyhow. Remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, however you feel, tell somebody, tell anybody, tell everybody. Reverend Al told you personally, keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, let's go.